I just got back from my health checkup with the report in hand. But when I got home, the place was empty. There was a note on the table from my wife. She said that the college student she's been sponsoring had just returned from abroad. She decided to take him to our lakeside estate for 2 months, and she won't be back anytime soon. This had me really worried. That estate has been left untouched because it's almost flood season, and the house will likely get flooded. What if they get swept away by the waters? We've got billions, more than I could ever spend in a lifetime. Yet here I am, my phone is nearly dead, and I still can't reach Nancy. I don't know if it's the bad signal out by the lake or if she's just ignoring my calls. Looking at the note left on the table made me sort of speechless. I know every word she wrote, but together they don't make much sense. I'm not going back home for now. David just got back to the country, and I want to help him get acquainted. We have so many properties that it makes sense to transfer the estate to him. David is the poor college student that Nancy has been sponsoring over the years. She gives him a $20,000 monthly allowance. Later, Nancy sent him to study abroad in Australia. He spent 2 years there and didn't even get a degree. And now he's back to pursue an MBA? Not to mention transferring the estate to him. Sure, we own lots of properties and we hardly miss one or two. But that lakeside estate is different. The view is beautiful, nestled between mountains and water with great feng shui. If not for the risk of flooding during the rainy season, that's why I got it cheaply at an auction. I wasn't expecting to come home only to find out that Nancy has already taken David to the estate without telling me. What if they stay the whole 2 months and a flood sweeps them away? That would plummet the land's value even more, wouldn't it? Even though I got it on the cheap, nobody's money grows on trees. The thought of losing out makes my heart ache. Since I couldn't get a hold of Nancy, I decided to call my mother-in-law. I asked her to get Nancy back from the estate before something bad happened. But she was busy playing mahjong and snapped at me, calling my words a bad omen. I tried explaining patiently, it's not about jinxing. It's that the estate isn't safe since I just bought it. Before I could finish, she cut me off. Why shouldn't she be allowed to live there? And what do you mean by you bought it? Every penny was earned by her. My daughter can live wherever she wants. Her words left me dumbstruck. Just as I was about to explain, she interrupted again with more anger. You've never earned a dime, so why your nonsense now? You didn't complain while spending money, but when my daughter wants to live at the estate, you throw a fit. Can't you see I'm in the middle of a game? Stop bothering me. And she hung up on me. Honestly, that left me speechless. My gambling-addicted mother-in-law knows nothing outside of mahjong. It's true, I haven't worked a single day since getting married. I spend my days either working out, reading, tending the garden, or sipping tea. But it doesn't mean the money is all Nancy's. When I met Nancy, she was just a poor girl. Sure, she graduated from a prestigious university, but she came from a humble background. Post-graduation, she didn't have any resources in society. Her career wasn't smooth, and her salary was low, staying at a low-level position for years. I married her because I saw her efforts, her determination. Life was just unfair, not providing her with the success she deserved. I didn't even ask for a dowry during our marriage. Instead, I gave her $2 million to start a business and used my family's resources as a safety net for her. Soon enough, the company started thriving. Over the years, it grew bigger. Nancy transformed from an obscure employee to a renowned young entrepreneur in our city. Most people aren't aware of this, although she's the legal entity of the company. Its initial capital all came from me. The company's shares are under my name. Additionally, the major client orders are maintained through my family's connections. Frankly, Nancy's nothing more than a high-level employee due to her marital ties with me. Once her business took off, she started getting attention from the media, labeling her as a young entrepreneur. It got to her head. A few years back, she began sponsoring poor college students under the company's name. It was more of a PR move, monthly stipends and part-time summer work at the company. But for some reason, David had a special place with her. She said his determined gaze reminded her of herself as a young woman, experiencing what she did when she started out. After sponsoring his undergraduate studies, she also sent him for further studies abroad. Yet 2 years went by and he didn't earn a degree. Now he's back for an MBA and suddenly, she's planning a getaway to the estate without prior notice. Even suggesting handing over the estate to him, it's utterly baffling. I am a bit angry, not exactly by these outrageous actions of Nancy's, but more so about her failing to see who truly is in charge at home. I took a deep breath to calm down. The doctor said I was doing well recently, and I should avoid getting worked up. I'm one to follow advice. Despite our spacious, 300-square-foot home now feeling deserted with only me around, at least it's quiet. I brewed myself some nice tea and lazily stretched out on the sofa. Suddenly, my phone chimed with a notification. Is the manor applying to restore electricity? Should we agree? Lakefront Manor has been sitting idle because no one has lived there for a long time. It has a complete smart system installed. To turn on the electricity or water, it needs confirmation from the user's main phone. Looks like Nancy has already taken David to the manor. They're probably trying to figure out how to turn the power back on now. When they touched the switch, I got a notification on my phone. So I opened up the manor's security feed. Suddenly, I had a dozen live feeds on my screen. I quickly found the one with Nancy in it. She was squatting in the supply room, sweating like crazy, fiddling with the breaker. It was July, the hottest time of the year. With the windows and doors closed for so long, and by the lake, the supply room was really hot and humid. Nancy was poking around the breaker for quite a while, and even through the screen you could tell she was drenched. The heat, combined with not getting it to work after so long, was making Nancy frustrated. She angrily knocked the breaker with her hand, cursing under her breath. What a piece of junk! I quickly hit agree on the option to restore power just as she was venting her frustration on the breaker. Suddenly, there was a loud crack as sparks flew from the breaker in the camera feed. Nancy screamed and was blasted backward. As she hit the ground, all the lights in the manor came on. Well done, Nancy. We have power. David, clearly excited, came into the frame. His smile faded quickly when he saw Nancy sprawled on the ground, groaning in pain with tears on her face. David was startled and rushed over to help her. But as he got closer, he couldn't help but blurt out, "Oh no, your hair?" The force from earlier had not only knocked Nancy back but also singed her hair. Once a polished young entrepreneur, she now had a bald patch. David panicked, circling around Nancy, not knowing what to do. I couldn't help but quip into my phone, "What's circling around gonna do? Get the first aid kit from the drawer on the 3rd floor. Don't just stand there like a deer in headlights." Hearing my voice, David was startled again. Who said that? He looked around but didn't see anyone else. His face turned pale. Anyone who has bought a manor knows the supply room isn't inside the main house. For safety, it's usually built separately. There's no need for it to be well furnished, so it's as bare as can be. Even with the power on now, it wasn't particularly bright. The light cast eerie shadows on the raw walls. In such an atmosphere, anyone would be freaked out if they heard a voice with no one in sight. So, David screamed, forgetting his intention to help Nancy. Instead, he clung to her electrified hand. "Nancy, this place is haunted." The pain of her hand brought Nancy back to her senses despite feeling a bit out of it from the shock. Her scream was loud and piercing. "My hand!" David realized he was digging his nails into Nancy's flesh. He quickly let go. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." Nancy stopped screaming, rolled her eyes, and nearly passed out again. David couldn't let her faint. He shook her frantically. "Nancy, don't faint. I'm really scared." Like a rag doll, Nancy was shaken back and forth. On my end, I was laughing so hard I was nearly in tears. David, vigorously shaking Nancy, heard laughter from above again. His fear hit a peak. But his legs were too weak to stand or run, so he just shook Nancy even harder. "Wake up, wake up." Finally, Nancy whispered, "Stop shaking. I'm gonna..." David leaned in closer. "What did you say?" I said, "Stop shaking me. I'm gonna puke." And then, without warning, Nancy puked. Right in David's face. It was disgusting. Even watching through the screen, I felt a bit queasy. David's handsome face was now covered in vomit, and he was just dumbstruck. Nancy, having thrown up, finally snapped out of it. She sat up and tried to wipe David's face. "Are you okay?" David, looking dazed, let Nancy wipe him without protest. I couldn't keep watching. It was just too weird and gross. So I chimed in, "Dumplings, huh? I think there's some chive on his eyebrow. Maybe get some water to clean it up. Hands won't do the trick." David finally reacted, looking terrified. "Did you hear that? This place is really haunted." Nancy, now clear-headed, wasn't a fool. She recognized my voice right away. Looking at the ceiling with resentment, she said, "Jack, this is your doing, isn't it? You set up cameras to spy on me and tried to electrocute me." I chuckled at that. "You can mess around with food, but not with words." I corrected her with a straight face. "Are you kidding me? Fiddling with the circuit breaker like a mad person and getting shocked is on you." The manor was just sitting idle. Suddenly, the system asked if I wanted to turn on the power. I thought maybe someone broke in. "And did I agree to you bringing this guy to my manor? That's trespassing, you know? If he got shocked, well, serves him right. I called you 1,000,000 times and you acted deaf, not picking up. What manor doesn't have security cameras? Okay. And you blame me for keeping an eye on you?" Nancy was speechless. But deep down, she knew just making a call would have fixed the power issue. There was really no need to mess with the breaker. But she knew bringing a guy to the manor was wrong. Ultimately, it's her own doing. And it's kind of typical. Over the years, she's gotten used to thinking she has control over everything. Not just some unused manor, but the company, money, villas, and even me, her husband. She feels she has complete control over it all. From a small-time employee, she rose to become a youthful entrepreneur, riding high on success. She lost the cautious, grounded nature she started with and became more and more reckless. When she was thriving in business, she never considered how much my family helped her. Be it money or resources, things she wouldn't have had access to on her own. Yet Nancy took all that as her own achievement. It's laughable. David finally got it. Turns out there wasn't a haunted house, just family drama. He tugged at Nancy's sleeve. "I'm all sticky and uncomfortable. Let's wash up in the manor's bathroom." Then he glanced at the ceiling and told me, "Don't be mad. It's my fault. Nancy just brought me here to unwind since I just got back and don't know anyone yet. If you don't want me here, I can leave." Nancy quickly interrupted him, pained. "Don't say that. Stay as long as you want in my manor. No need to waste words with this heartless man," she said, pulling David away. I let out a cold laugh and streamed the surveillance footage onto the 100-inch TV at home. The entire manor, every nook and cranny, was visible on the screen. Especially with Nancy's bald head sticking out in the footage, it was hard to miss. The footage showed them supporting each other as they left the power room and headed to the main hall of the manor. On the way, they passed by the lakeside. Maybe because they were in a rush to clean themselves up, they didn't notice the rising water level by the lake. When they reached the manor's front door, Nancy skillfully pulled a piece of paper out of her pocket. She punched in the password on the door's keypad as per the numbers on it. The door opened with a click, and she tossed the paper away with a smug expression. Seeing this, I couldn't help but smirk. Nancy knowing the door password wasn't a surprise. I use my birthday as the password for everything, from ATM cards to various app accounts. Of course, the manor door was no exception. What made me laugh was how, after so many years of marriage, she didn't even remember my birthday, needing to write it down on paper. What a great wife. Switching the camera feed, I watched them limping awkwardly into the main hall of the manor. David still had Nancy's vomit on his pants, but as soon as he stepped in, his eyes lit up. His fingers gently caressed the imported leather sofa, and he turned to Nancy, flashing a sweet smile. "Nancy, this place is really gorgeous." He blinked, his voice probing. "You said you'd transfer it to me before? Is it true?" While using tissues to clean her burnt hair, Nancy immediately nodded when she heard him. Of course. What's that to you? Just give it some time. I opened my phone app and dropped the temperature in the hall to freezing. In less than 5 minutes, David started shivering, hugging his arms. Why is it so cold all of a sudden? Frowning, Nancy went to locate the thermostat, but realized all the control systems in the smart manner required my phone's authorization. She instantly got it and shouted at the ceiling. Jack, haven't you had enough? I chuckled and got up from the sofa with a mocking snort. Compared to witnessing their idiocy, I had more pressing matters on my mind. I poured myself another cup of tea and carried it to the balcony. Sure enough, it had started raining outside again. The weather forecast said it'd soon go from light to heavy, and in a couple of hours, there would likely be a yellow flood warning. Listening to the pitter-patter of raindrops outside, a satisfied smile crept onto my face. I went back to the sofa and lay down, just in time to see the footage where those two were being all lovey-dovey. We should take a hot shower to warm up. I turned up the microphone volume in the bathroom and overheard Nancy's greasy suggestion. Let's shower together. I'll help you scrub your back. David kind of squirmed as Nancy pulled him into the bathroom, eagerly unbuttoning his shirt. Wait, David suddenly pointed at the ceiling camera, his voice warping. There's one here too. Nancy paused, then brushed it off uncaringly. So what? If he wants to watch, let him watch all he wants, and reached to hug David's waist. But David flinched like he'd been shocked, tightening his robe and retreating into a corner. No way. What if he records it and puts it online? He bit his lip, nearly tearful with anxiety. What about my reputation? Nancy immediately felt distressed, quickly comforting him. Don't worry, I'll get tools to remove it. Before leaving, she turned on the heater and handed David a glass of red wine. Warm up first. I'll be right back. Like a dog in heat, Nancy bolted out, sprinting down the stairs. It was obvious Nancy was very familiar with the manor's layout. She easily found her way to the basement. There's a room just for storing tools and stuff, and there's a little ladder she can use to reach the ceiling. She was so eager, I couldn't help but feel a bit scornful. Nancy had never been to the estate before, but now she was acting like she knew the layout inside out. She must have gotten hold of the estate's floor plan from somewhere else. I scoffed. Nancy, you sure seem to know your way around. Planning to make this your love nest with him? Nancy ignored my taunts, diving into the tool room to rummage for tools. That fool only had one thing on her mind, to get rid of the surveillance so she could get frisky with her lover in my bathroom. Her hands were shaking when she found the ladder and hammer, desperate to break the cameras. But before she could even get started, I remotely locked the tool room door with a click. Nancy turned and kicked at the door, her face twisted in frustration. Jack, let me out, she yelled. I chuckled. What's the matter? Didn't you do your homework? Didn't know I could control every door? I added, oh right, the floor plans didn't mention the remote electronic locks. Lust is a dangerous thing, Nancy. You just sit tight. Over in the bathroom, I switched to the camera feed. David had finished his glass of wine. He was sweating under the heat lamp, his face flushed, and forehead beaded with sweat. It's so hot, he muttered, trying to turn off the light, but the switch wouldn't work. He looked up at the camera, realizing what was happening. Can you turn the lamp off? He asked. No can do. Nancy set that up just for you, I replied, cranking up the heat and turning on the hot water. Scalding water gushed from the shower head, filling the room with steam. David leaped back, fumbling to turn it off, but the valve wouldn't budge. The room fogged up, mirrors obscured with condensation. He stumbled around the bathroom like a cat in a bathtub, his bathrobe soaked and clinging to him, hair plastered to his face. The thermometer read 113 Fahrenheit degrees. Open the door. Let me out, he screamed, pounding on the bathroom door, his makeup running messily down his face. I set both camera feeds side by side. Nancy beating at the tool room door like a caged animal and David losing his mind in his steamy prison. The rain outside poured harder, adding a dramatic score to their chaos. Steam was so thick inside the bathroom now. David's clothes weighed heavy with water. He tried for the faucet again, burning his fingers on the metal. The shower stool toppled over, bruising his leg against the tub. "Please," he begged, finally breaking, kneeling in front of the camera. "I'm sorry. I know I was wrong." His forehead rested on cold glass, voice breaking. "You should be satisfied now." "Sure, I got close to Nancy, but come on, do I really deserve this?" I tapped the mic. "Did you really think I was the only one setting you up?" David's sobs stopped, eyes wide in realization. "Maria ring any bells?" I asked. "Guess you figured it out." "Huh?" David's lips trembled. He knew the name well. In the past 2 years in Australia, David's studies didn't go far, but he finessed life as a gigolo. He was quite a schemer, good at whatever it took. The largest private hospital in Melbourne was said to have wealthy Chinese ladies convalescing. He ditched school, became a carer, and somehow snagged the city's wealthiest widow, Maria. David spent the last couple of years keeping her content and managed to marry her abroad. Maria's health was deteriorating lately. She's reportedly in the ICU. David got his hands on a will while Maria was in and out of consciousness, then hurried back here. The whole studying for an MBA thing was just a cover. He's here to claim his spot as LM Group's heir. Will in hand, and being Maria's lawful husband made him feel secure. All while Nancy knew about the whole plan, which is why she's so invested in David. Looks like she isn't just shopping for a husband. She's looking for a new sugar daddy. These two really do deserve each other in a way. As I watched their pitiful scenes on the monitor, the doorbell rang. On the video intercom, I saw a young woman in a business suit, standing in the storm with a black Benz behind her. "Hi, Jack. I'm Maggie." Maggie is Maria's only daughter. Without David, she'd be the rightful heir to LM Group. We'd only spoken on the phone before, so this was our first face-to-face. Maggie seemed to be in her early 20s, sporting a sharp bob haircut and glasses. She was smart-looking with a pleasant voice. "How are they holding up?" she asked, referring to Nancy and David. I waved her in and pointed at the monitors, showing Nancy locked in with tools and David trapped in the bathroom, both very much alive. Maggie glanced at the screens and smirked. "Looks like they can last a while longer." "No rush," I said, taking a sip of tea. "The flood's an hour away." She nodded, pulling a file from her briefcase. "What you asked for on the phone is ready." Inside the folder was a thick stack of documents, and each page was filled with densely packed legal jargon. "Once you sign them, the sale of your company to LM Group will be finalized." She then pulled out a bank card from her bag and handed it to me. "I had a financial expert review your company's business and assets, and I'd say your offer of $2 billion is quite fair." Maggie smiled and continued, "But I've got a question that's been on my mind, though you don't have to answer if you don't want to. I'm just curious." I squeezed the bank card in my hand and said, "Go ahead and ask." Maggie thought for a moment and then asked seriously, "Since you own all the shares, why are you so set on selling your company to us? This company's worth more than $2 billion if you kept it." Maggie adjusted her glasses and said, "And whether Nancy is alive or not, the ownership is still yours." "Oh, that's what she wants to know." I picked up a piece of fruit from the platter on the table, took a bite, and explained softly, "Nancy's been managing the company all these years. Everyone in it is her people. It'd be tough for me to take control quickly. If I can't control it, I might as well sell it. Trading something unmanageable for cash isn't a loss." Maggie looked at me and smiled oddly. "Aren't you worried Nancy's gambling addict mom will come after you? Sure, you own the shares, but the company's profits in recent years were made after you got married. Legally speaking, it's marital property, so Nancy should still get half. If she's dead, her mom has inheritance rights. She already transferred that part to David in various ways. It's not my deal anymore." I fiddled with the pen I was about to sign with, keeping my head down as I spoke slowly. No one expected Nancy would suddenly take your stepdad David to the lakefront estate for a vacation. David was an orphan, so after his death, Not only would his inheritance return to LM Group, but the so-called transferred profits Nancy gave him too. Since the company's profits are already yours and I can't control it, why not sell it to you entirely? If her mom causes trouble, she should come to you at LM Group. I quickly signed the documents and extended a hand to Maggie. Now, this company's entity and net growth profits from these years have nothing to do with me. She smiled contentedly and shook my hand. Pleasure doing business with you, Jack, but keep in mind, natural disasters and self-destruction aren't LM Group's responsibility. Looking at this seemingly efficient young lady before me, I couldn't help but sigh internally. David had underestimated the complexity of a wealthy family. When he got Maria's will, he thought he'd hit the jackpot for life. Sadly, that ticket turned into his death sentence. Just last year, when I found out Nancy had an affair with David, I hired a private investigator to dig in. The result was Maggie reaching out with very detailed files on the two of them. Clearly, LM Group's inheritance was meant for Maggie only. She said she was the first heir before, now, and always in the future. Her tone wasn't sharp, but full of confidence. Afterward, we had a friendly chat on the phone. She asked me about Nancy's hobbies, routines, and daily schedule meticulously. Meanwhile, I thoroughly inquired about David. When I mentioned that Nancy was keen on buying luxurious properties to flaunt her status, Maggie said the group had a lakeside estate for sale. Since it was in a flood-prone area, the price was low, so a plan started to take shape. Maggie used the insights on Nancy's routine and habits that I provided to place ads on Nancy's favorite apps, featuring the lakeside estate for auction. Any screen Nancy could see, whether TV, computer, or even during her elevator rides or while walking past malls, would coincidentally show the estate on LED displays. As a prideful, successful businesswoman with a strong sense of vanity, Nancy got hooked quickly. Although the manor was priced at just $2 million, it still bothered her. After all, she's essentially an employee of my family and couldn't afford much cash. Promoting your family's assets is just part of the game. I'm a businessman, but I never engage in anything illegal. That day on the phone, Maggie shared her plan with me while laughing. What do you need me to do? I asked. Just make sure Nancy makes a trip to the manor. I nodded and said, I'll turn a blind eye to her affair with David, but occasionally remind her none of the properties are in her name. She's been a wealthy facade all along. Someone feeling restless might want a getaway, especially someone like Nancy, successful, proud, but essentially broke. When she comes home frustrated and sees that I bought that elusive lakeside estate, she'll likely want to take David there without hesitation. Maggie chuckled over the phone. You just have to play the mental game subtly, don't be too obvious. I thought about it and felt it wasn't enough. I could use Nancy's mom, my mother-in-law. What's the idea? She likes playing mahjong and has a bit of a gambling problem. The line went silent for a moment before she replied. Got it, have her lose some money, maybe take out a high-interest loan. Then she'd often pester her daughter for money, which would make Nancy even more stressed. Maggie sure is sharp, she caught on quickly. You'll need to handle that. I'm just a man at home, living the good life, not having the resources for such operations. Jack, you're too modest. Maggie and I were sitting side by side on the couch, staring at the surveillance feed on the TV. The floodwater had already reached the outskirts of the estate, slowly engulfing this meticulously designed cage. She was still banging on the iron door, but it wasn't doing much. I let out a long, deep sigh. Maggie, thinking I was worried about not drowning the two, adjusted her glasses and said, Don't worry, Jack. We cleared everyone out a month ago. Just like when they entered, there were no obstacles. Now no one can save them. Her voice was as calm as if she were discussing what to have for breakfast tomorrow. Besides, I dismantled all the signal towers around here. On the screen, water in the toolshed had reached Nancy's waist. She held up her phone desperately, her face turning pale when she realized there was no signal. See? Maggie chuckled lightly. Her phone's as good as a brick now. Nancy suddenly lunged at the surveillance camera, her soaked shirt clinging to her skin. I was wrong. Save me. Open the door, please. We've been married for 7 years. I promise I'll treat you well from now on. I leaned into the microphone. You actually have the key. After a brief pause, I continued. When we put in new electronic locks, I left a secondary slot under the keyhole. All you need to do is put our wedding ring in, and the door will open automatically. On screen, Nancy's expression froze. She trembled as she reached for her bare ring finger, collapsing into the water like her strength was gone. Maggie took a sip of her tea. So that's what you were sighing about. Looks like she didn't bring it. Huh? The TV screen suddenly turned to static. The last image was Nancy hopelessly slapping the water. The flood completely submerged the estate, cutting off the surveillance feed. Maggie pulled out her phone, tapped a few times. I've got a drone coming in. Minutes later, the aerial view popped up on her phone screen. The grand estate was entirely swallowed by murky floodwaters, only a few rooftops poking above like sinking rocks. Now it's all clean, Maggie said, putting away her phone. The flood's gonna wash away all the evidence. I nodded, standing up to see her out. Her luxury car was already parked in front of my villa. Before getting in, she suddenly glanced back at me and asked, I heard David and an ex have a kid. Are you really gonna make him your heir? Course not. What do you take me for? She looked at me curiously, frowning. I don't get it. Why raise a kid who's not yours? I sighed. I'm getting on in years, and I need an heir to my business. Nancy was a jerk, but she had a keen eye. That kid's probably got good genes. If Nancy liked him so much, think of him as her last gift to me. I'm confident I'll raise him well. I gently nudged Maggie into the car, seriously saying, You're still young, don't rush into marriage. The next morning, I went to report her missing. My wife's been gone for 24 hours. Nancy was a young businesswoman, so the police took it seriously. They traced her speeding towards the suburbs, heading to an estate in the floodplain. And she never came out. With the severe flooding, rescues were tough. The rescue teams went several times but came back empty-handed. It wasn't until a month later that they found their bodies downstream. By then, they were unrecognizable from the water exposure. 6 months later, I moved into another city's villa with a baby a few months old. Friends asked if I'd decided on a name. I smiled and said I hadn't yet, but he'd definitely have my last name.